So right now, we're being faced with the fact that we have 11 years, according to the IPCC, before we have caused permanent damage to our Earth from climate change. And we're already seeing the effects. Floods, forest fires, droughts, and people are starting to get scared and concerned all around the world, and that's good. But at the same time, environmentalism, greenness, eco-friendliness, sustainability, these are all becoming buzzwords. Politicians are throwing these words around for votes. Corporations are marketing products as environmentally friendly, and environmentalism has become trendy. So how can we approach environmentalism in a meaningful way, especially in a generation with so many social media campaigns and online advertisers? What does positive environmentalism look like? And what methods will be the most important and effective in the coming years? In other words, it's so essential that we don't get drawn into trendy environmentalism, but that we ensure that we are promoting permanent changes beyond ourselves, so that environmentalism can be a social issue rather than an individual plight. So I think let's start by talking about individual activism and individual actions. This is one of the primary ways we're targeted as consumers and as youth into thinking that we're making changes when that's not always the case. Take the anti-plastic straw movement. This is a screenshot of the hashtag plastic straws on Instagram, which has over 16.8 thousand public posts. And if we take a look at the slogans, plant-based straws can save the ocean. What? If you're going and buying a plant-based straw with a plastic cup or a plastic bag, buying new clothes, wearing makeup, you name it, driving to work, driving to school, you're not saving the ocean. And so a trend like this is absolutely not productive. But at the same time as it's not productive, it's also not sustainable. Here's the Google Trends for the search plastic straws in the last 2 years. We can see its clear peak. It's not going to keep going. Compare this to zero waste living. This trend has been clearly going up at a more sustainable rate recently, and so this is a very positive trend in that way. But at the same time, a zero waste lifestyle isn't accessible for everyone. It's expensive, it's inconvenient, and frankly, most people aren't willing to put in the effort to go zero waste. And so we can't just make individual changes and expect to end climate change or pollution. We need policy that's going to make environmentalism accessible for everyone in the world so that everyone can participate in this change, even if they don't care to. So let's start by talking about some interesting policies that have been going on lately. This is a map of Copenhagen, Denmark, and they've set up some really great bicycle infrastructure in their city. So this is a map of the bicycle highways that go from the suburbs to the downtown, and they've increased to 41% of all trips to school and to work are done by bicycle. How they've done this? Bicycle highways, safe bike lanes, a free bike share service, and traffic lights that benefit cyclists over cars. And what's really interesting about this is that only 1% of the cyclists are doing it for environmental reasons. 19% for their health, but the rest, it comes down to convenience and cost, and the government has set up a system where everyone can live in a sustainable manner and participate in this environmental action, whether they want to or not, and no matter their socioeconomic status. Canada hasn't been doing quite as well. We've joined in some ways with the new carbon tax, which will make environmental living comparably cheaper in the coming years, but we don't have a government that's prioritizing environmentalism. Our government is building pipelines at the same time as implementing a carbon tax. How is that contributing? How is that giving a message of environmentalism? So we need a government that's going to produce a policy that is accessible to everyone, and we need them to have budgets, timelines, action plans, all of this, and we need them to give that to us soon. A key policy that I've seen lately is the Green New Deal. So the Green New Deal is a comprehensive policy that's been popping up, gaining a lot of steam in the US as well as Canada. And the idea behind the Green New Deal is to put together social policy, economic policy, and environmental policy into one big package, to essentially revamp the entire economy, all of our infrastructure, creating many, many jobs at the same time, doing it in an equitable fashion, helping our economy. This is an incredible idea that all of these things go together, because ultimately, environmentalism is a social issue. It is going to and does affect all of us. This policy can seem kind of daunting, though. It's a huge idea to kind of get this through government, and it's been largely unsuccessful in the United States. And so how do we get something like this through? Especially speaking to an audience of youth, most of us can't even vote. So that brings me to collective action. There's a misconception that we can't make change through protest. Many people think maybe we need 50% of us to go out there and protest to make a change. But in fact, historical studies have shown that we only need 3.5% of the population to be mobilized to make the change, to make radical changes. So some key examples that we've seen of environmental protests lately: Standing Rock in 2016, thousands of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people camped out to prevent the Dakota Access Pipeline. And they halted the construction for a whole year and gained huge attention from the media and from the government. They weren't successful. The Trump administration did build the pipeline, but then that momentum carried over to BC, where there are protests going on right now. Or take Extinction Rebellion in London. They had huge numbers of arrests during their April protests, which led to much media attention. Fridays for Future is a growing youth movement around the world. Every Friday, youth are going out because we need a future. So what I'm asking you to do is take a look around you and see what you can do as individuals, as a part of a whole. So talk to your local politicians, local business owners, talk to your family, friends, neighbors, educate yourselves, and bring that to the table. Because it's too late to sit back and say, I posted on Instagram yesterday that I care about the environment. I've done my bit. It's too late to do that and not go out to the streets and yell. It's too late to buy a metal straw and say, well, the ocean will be okay. It won't. So what we need to be doing is going out and fighting for our environment and our earth and our future. We need to step out of our comfort zone so that there is a comfort zone to step back into in 50 years. We need to make environmentalism something that everyone can do in their daily lives without thinking about it. We need to fight so that someday, down the line, environmentalism can just be a word again. Thank you.